The crowbar bit into the wood with a wet crunch. Rot. It smelled like dead leaves and old water. Silas put his weight into it. The door screamed. Not a creak, a scream. Metal hinges rusted solid, fighting against 20 years of silence. He shoved. The timber splintered, giving way to a blast of air that tasted like a tomb. It was cold, colder than the summer air outside should allow. He stepped in. The floorboards groaned under his boots. Heavy boots, steel-toed, the kind that had spent a lifetime on asphalt and foot pegs. He wasn't supposed to be here, not according to the town, not according to the whispers at the diner 3 miles down the road. They said the place was cursed. They said the soil was sour. But Silas didn't believe in ghosts. He believed in leverage. And for $200, this wasn't a purchase. It was a theft. He clicked his flashlight on. The beam cut through the dust motes dancing in the stagnant air. Shadows stretched out like long, thin fingers. A grand staircase loomed ahead, or what was left of it. The banister was gone, probably stripped by copper thieves a decade ago. The carpet was a slick of mold, but the bones of the place were there, massive, arrogant. This house had been built by men who thought they would live forever, men who thought concrete and rebar could keep the world out. They were wrong. Silas walked further in. Broken glass crunched under his heel, a sound like grinding teeth. He stopped, listened. Silence, but not empty silence. It was the heavy, pressurized silence of a place that was holding its breath. He ran a hand over the wall. The wallpaper was peeling in long, sunburned strips. Underneath, the plaster was gray and cold. He had bought a headache, he knew that, but he needed a place where the noise of the world couldn't reach him. He needed a fortress. He just didn't realize he had bought a grave. If you're the kind of person who sees potential where everyone else sees a wreck, you're in the right place. That curiosity is what keeps us going. Hit that subscribe button if you've ever wanted to walk away from it all and build something with your own 2 hands. The auction had been a joke. That was the only word for it, a joke. It happened on the courthouse steps, under a sun that felt like a physical weight. The auctioneer was a nervous man, sweaty upper lip, cheap suit. He mumbled through the legalese, rushing to get it over with. Lot 42, the Bianchi estate, as is, where is, all liens cleared. The crowd was thin, mostly locals, curious, bored retirees, a couple of developers who looked at the photos, saw the structural damage and laughed. They knew the history. The Bianchi family hadn't moved out. They had been removed, in pieces, or so the story went. The case went cold in the 90s. The house sat, the taxes piled up, until the county seized it just to stop the bleeding. Opening bid, $100. Silence. Someone coughed. A bird screeched from a telephone wire. Silas raised a gloved hand. He didn't speak. He didn't take off his sunglasses. He just lifted a finger. "I have 100, the auctioneer squeaked. "Do I hear 2? 200 for the whole parcel? 10 acres and the structure?" The man next to Silas, a local with grease under his fingernails and a trucker hat pulled low, leaned in. He smelled like chewing tobacco and fear. "Don't do it, buddy," he whispered. "That land ain't right. Sheriff don't like strangers poking around up there." Silas didn't look at him. He kept his eyes on the auctioneer. 200, Silas said. His voice was gravel, low, the kind of voice that ends conversations. Sold! The gavel came down fast, too fast, like the auctioneer was afraid Silas would change his mind. He paid in cash, crisp bills. The clerk handed him the deed with shaking hands. She looked at his vest, the patch on the back, the leather cut that had seen more rain and road grit than most cars. She didn't say thank you. She just said, "Good luck." She said it like she was saying goodbye. Now, standing in the foyer, Silas understood the look. The house was massive, 3 stories of Victorian arrogance rotting into the earth. He walked to the kitchen. It was a disaster zone. The cabinets were hanging off the walls. The linoleum was curled up like dead leaves. But on the center island, untouched by the decay, sat a coffee mug. It was white, pristine, no dust. Silas stared at it. He didn't touch it. He scanned the room. The windows were boarded up tight. The doors were locked. He had just broken the seal on the front door. So how did a clean coffee mug get here? He felt the hair on his arms stand up. Not fear, alertness. The feeling you get when a car merges into your lane without looking. The sense that impact is coming. He reached into his jacket, his hand wrapped around the cold steel of a tire iron. It wasn't a weapon, technically. It was a tool. But in the right hands, everything is a tool. He moved toward the basement door. It was a heavy oak slab, reinforced with iron straps. There was a padlock on it, a new one, shining silver against the dark wood. Silas frowned. He hadn't put that there. He jammed the tire iron into the hasp. Leverage, physics. He applied pressure. The metal groaned, then snapped. The lock fell to the floor with a heavy thud. He kicked the door open. Darkness, absolute and total, and a smell. It wasn't the rot from upstairs. It wasn't mildew. It was sharper, cleaner, the smell of oil, gun oil, and ozone. Silas descended. The stairs were concrete here, solid. The air grew cooler with every step. He reached the bottom and swept the light across the room. It wasn't a basement. It was a bunker. Concrete walls, steel beams, and rows of shelving units. Empty. Whatever had been stored here, wine, money, or guns, was long gone, stripped clean. Silas walked the perimeter. He checked the corners. Nothing, just dust and the echo of his own boots. He was about to turn back when he saw it, a scratch on the floor. It was a semicircle, faint, etched into the concrete, the kind of mark a heavy door makes when it drags. But there was no door there, just a solid wall of shelving. Silas holstered the flashlight. He grabbed the shelving unit, bolted down. He pulled. It didn't budge. He looked closer. Behind the third shelf, tucked into the shadows, was a latch, small, hidden. He flipped it. A click echoed through the room, loud, mechanical. The entire shelf unit swung outward. Silas stepped back, his breath caught in his throat. Behind the shelf was a steel door, bank vault quality, but it was open, just a crack, a sliver of darkness. He pushed it. The hinges were well-oiled, silent. Inside was a small room, maybe 10 by 10, a cot on the corner, a bucket, a small table, and on the table, a stack of notebooks, leather-bound, old. Beside them sat a radio, a modern one. The red power light was blinking. Someone had been here, recently. Silas picked up the top notebook. The leather was cracked. He opened it. The handwriting was jagged, frantic. Dates, names, amounts. It was a ledger, but not for a business, for a town. July 12, 1998, Sheriff Vance, $5,000, silence. August 4th, Zoning Commission, $10,000, approval for waste site. September 1, they know, I have to hide it. Silas flipped the pages. It went on for years. Payoffs, blackmail, murders disguised as accidents. The Bianchi family wasn't the mob, they were the bank. They held the money for the real criminals, the people who ran the town. He heard a sound behind him, the click of a hammer being pulled back. Silas didn't flinch. He didn't turn around. He froze. "Put the book down, biker," a rough voice said, smoky, tired. It wasn't the sheriff. It sounded older, tired. Silas lowered the book to the table. He raised his hands, calm,
controlled. "I just bought the place," Silas said. "Didn't know it came with a tenant." "Turn around, slow." Silas turned. In the doorway stood a man. He looked like he was made of beef jerky and barbed wire, long gray beard, clothes that were mostly patches. He had a shotgun. The barrel was sawed off. The bore looked like a cannon. "You're trespassing," the old man said. "I have the deed," Silas said. "Paid cash." The old man spat on the floor. "Deed don't mean nothing here. Blood means something. Who sent you? Vance?" "I don't know who Vance is," Silas lied. He knew the name from the notebook. "I'm just a guy who wants a roof over his head."
The old man narrowed his eyes. He looked at Silas's cut, the patch, the winged skull. He lowered the gun a fraction of an inch. "Angel?" "Retired," Silas said. "Nomad now. Just me." The old man hesitated. He looked at the ledger on the table. "You read it?" "Enough." "Then you know you're a dead man," the old man said. He stepped into the light. "I'm Marco Bianchi." The twist hit Silas like a physical blow. The Bianchi family was dead. Everyone knew that. They were wiped out in '99. That was the story. "You're supposed to be a ghost," Silas said. "Best way to stay alive," Marco grunted. "Vance and his boys, they came for us, killed my brother, my wife. I hid down here, sealed myself in. They searched for weeks, never found the latch." "You've been down here for 20 years?" Marco grunted. "I come out at night, scavenge, keep the rumors alive, make a noise, move a shadow, keep the superstitious folk away. It worked, until the county seized it for taxes. I couldn't pay the taxes without exposing myself." Silas looked at the cot, the bucket, 2 decades of living like a rat, all to protect a stack of paper. "Why didn't you leave?" Silas asked. "Why stay?" Marco tapped the table. "Because of what's under the floor. It ain't just books, son. It's the collateral." Marco kicked aside a rug. Underneath was a small safe embedded in the concrete. "Vance wants the money. He thinks I took the family reserves. He's been waiting for someone to buy this place, fix it up, and maybe find it for him. He's got eyes on the road. He knows you're here." Silas felt the weight of the situation. He wasn't just fixing a house anymore. He was standing in the middle of a war zone. "Vance is the sheriff?" Silas asked. "For now. He runs this county like a fiefdom. He thinks he's untouchable." "Nobody's untouchable," Silas said. He reached for his cigarettes. "So what's the play? We wait for him to kick the door in?" Marco grinned. It was a grim expression. "He won't kick it in. He'll burn it down. That's his style. Fire covers a lot of sins." Silas exhaled a plume of blue smoke. He looked at the damp walls, the crumbling ceiling. "I just paid $200 for this house," Silas said softly. "I haven't even unpacked yet. I'll be damned if I let some tin star punk burn it down." This is the part where most people would walk away, cut their losses, run. But sometimes you find a fight that belongs to you, even if you didn't start it. If you believe in standing your ground no matter the odds, smash that like button. It tells the algorithm we aren't backing down. "We need to fortify," Silas said. "How much ammo you got?" "Enough for a skirmish, not a siege." "I got a toolkit in my saddlebags, and I got a phone." "Who you calling?" "Family." The sun began to set. The house groaned as the temperature dropped. Silas and Marco worked. They didn't talk much. Men like them don't need to. They boarded up the ground floor windows from the inside, using the debris from the kitchen. Silas welded the back door shut using a portable rig he carried on his bike. By midnight, the house was a fortress. At 2 a.m., the headlights appeared. 3 cars, SUVs, no sirens. They rolled up the long, cracked driveway slowly. The gravel crunched. They stopped 50 yards out.
Silas watched from the second-story window. He was holding Marco's shotgun. Marco was downstairs with a hunting rifle Silas had found in the trunk of his car. A figure stepped out of the lled SUV. Tall, wide hat, sheriff's uniform. Even in the dark, you could feel the arrogance coming off him. "You in there, biker?" The voice was amplified, a bullhorn. Silas didn't answer. "We know you're squatting. This building is condemned, unsafe. You have 5 minutes to vacate, or we come in and remove you, for your own safety." "Liar," Marco whispered from the stairwell. Silas lit another cigarette. He cracked the window. "I got the deed, Sheriff," he shouted back. His voice carried in the stillness. "It's private property. Come back with a warrant." "I am the warrant," Vance yelled. He waved his hand. The doors of the other SUVs opened. 6 men got out. They weren't wearing uniforms. They were wearing tactical gear, or the closest thing a small-town budget could buy. They carried gas cans. "They aren't coming to arrest us," Silas thought to himself. "Burn it," Vance ordered. The men moved forward. They splashed the porch with gasoline. The fumes drifted up, thick and choking. Silas didn't panic. He checked the chamber. Then he pulled out his phone. He hit send on a group text he had drafted hours ago. Location dropped. "Trouble. Bring the noise." One of the deputies flicked the lighter. "Wait!" Silas yelled. The deputy paused. "You light that, and you never find the money." Vance froze. He held up a hand. The deputy stopped. "What did you say?" Vance asked. "The money," Silas shouted. "I found the safe in the basement. You burn the house. The heat melts the contents. You get nothing." It was a bluff. The safe didn't have money. Marco had told him. It had bones, the bones of the previous sheriff who tried to extort the Bianchis. But Vance didn't know that. Greed makes men stupid. "Come out," Vance said, "with the money, and maybe you walk away." "I'm coming out," Silas said, "but I'm heavy." Silas walked down the stairs. He nodded to Marco. Marco racked the bolt on the rifle. Silas opened the front door. He stepped on the gasoline-soaked porch. He wasn't holding the money. He was holding the tire iron. Vance laughed. "You brought a stick to a gunfight, son?" "No," Silas said. He looked past the sheriff, toward the highway. "I brought the cavalry." A low rumble started. It wasn't thunder. It was rhythmic, deep, a vibration that shook the leaves on the trees. Vance turned around. Twin beams of light cut through the darkness, then 2 more, then 10, then 20. The roar became deafening, the sound of V-twin engines screaming in unison. It's a sound that taps into something primal, fear, respect.
30 motorcycles turned into the driveway. They fanned out, blocking the exit. The engines cut. Silence returned. But this time, it was heavy with threat. Men stepped off the bikes. Big men, cuts on their backs. They didn't draw weapons. They didn't yell. They just formed a wall. The quiet lions. Vance looked at his 6 deputies. Then he looked at the 30 bikers. The math wasn't good. "This is a police matter," Vance stammered. His arrogance was evaporating like the gas on the porch. "This is a homeowner's dispute," a voice came from the crowd. A massive man named Bishop stepped forward. He was the chapter president. "Our brother here says you're trespassing." "He's harboring a criminal," Vance yelled. "There's a fugitive in there." "There's a witness in here," Silas said. He stepped aside. Marco walked out onto the porch. Vance's face went white, like sheet music. "You're dead," he whispered. "Not yet," Marco said. He held up the ledger. "But your career is." The state police arrived 10 minutes later. Silas had called them too, but they wouldn't rush for a biker. They'd rush for a corruption scandal. Vance tried to run. Bishop just stepped in his path. The sheriff bounced off the biker's chest like a tennis ball. The cuffs went on.
The deputies dropped the gas cans and raised their hands. They knew when the wind had changed. It took 3 hours for the scene to clear. The feds took the ledger. They took the safe. They took Vance. By sunrise, the driveway was empty, just tire tracks and the smell of spilled gasoline. Silas sat on the porch steps. He was exhausted. Every muscle ached. Bishop walked up and handed him a beer. It was 6 a.m., breakfast of champions. "Nice place," Bishop said, looking at the rotting eaves. "Needs work." "It's got good bones," Silas said. "What about the old man?" Silas looked back into the house. Marco was in the kitchen, trying to fix the hinge on a cabinet. He was humming an old Italian song. "He comes with the house," Silas said. "He's got nowhere to go," Bishop noted. "Neither do I," Silas said. The weeks that followed were hard. There was no magic pot of gold. The ledger didn't turn into cash. It just turned into court dates. Silas didn't get a reward. He got a property tax bill. But the town changed. Slowly. The fear lifted. People started waving when Silas rode by. The diner waitress poured his coffee without shaking. They knew what had happened at the Bianchi place. They knew the biker and the ghost had cleaned house. Silas and Marco worked. They stripped the rot. They hung new drywall. They replaced the roof shingle by shingle. It wasn't charity. Marco knew plumbing. Silas knew carpentry. They traded skills. One afternoon, 6 months later, Silas was putting the finishing touches on the porch railing. The wood was fresh, smelling of cedar and stain. Marco walked out. He had shaved the beard. He looked 10 years younger. He was holding 2 mugs of coffee. "The mail came," Marco said. "Anything good?" "A bill for the lumber and a letter from the Historical Society. They want to put a plaque up." Silas laughed, a dry, rusty sound. "Tell 'em to save the brass." He took the coffee. He looked out over the yard. The weeds were gone. The grass was coming in green. The house wasn't a monster anymore. It was just a house. "You know," Marco said, looking at the horizon, "I spent 20 years hiding in the dark because I thought the world was full of Vances." "It is," Silas said. He took a sip. "But it's got a few of us, too." Silas wasn't a hero. He was just a man who refused to move. He bought a wreck for $200 and found a life buried inside. He didn't fix the house because he wanted to flip it. He fixed it because sometimes the only way to fix yourself is to build something that lasts. Life isn't about the hand you're dealt. It's about how you play the cards when the table is rigged. If you're still here, leave a comment below saying "build it back." It reminds us that nothing is too broken to be saved. Silas finished his coffee. He stood up. "Back to work," Silas said. "Back to work," Marco agreed. The hammer struck the nail, a solid, clean sound. It echoed through the valley, louder than any gavel.